All right, it's 2 o'clock. It looks like we're ready to get started here. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Megan, and today this is Softvision Suite's monthly webinar. This month we are focused on dynamic reports and finding useful data. So an introduction here, this is our customer success team that is running these monthly webinars for you, and each of us are assigned to you to help ensure your success and maximize your use on our inventory products. Please feel free to reach out to us directly if you have any questions, or we also have our customer success email located at the top of the screen here. So before we get started, as always, we do have everybody on mute just to reduce any feedback noise. We encourage you to use the Q&A icon that's located on the Zoom toolbar of your meeting. And this way you can interact with us, ask us questions, and we can reply through there. We'll also set aside some time at the end of the session to answer any unanswered questions. A recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, like always, and you'll also have visibility to it on the support site. So to get started here, beginning with what is DRS? So DRS is our data-driven reporting system used for Softvision Suite. As part of implementation, we collect all of your data into a centralized data mart that we then allow you and your users to access so that you can query the data and save and create customized reports. There are many options within the system that allow you to summarize, filter, and format your reports, as well as we include a library of standardized reports and tables for you to build from. We did want to call out the parameters here. There are 2 parameters that help drive or limit the number of records that can be pulled into a report. Users have the ability to update this value. So for example, you'll see the record limit at the bottom defaulted to 200,000, but we made the adjustment increasing it to 500,000. So it's a parameter to keep in mind depending on your company and the size of data that you are querying.
So DRS will query, excuse me everybody, hello, this is Linda. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. DRS will structure and pull data from both a combination of tables and views. So our tables will all begin with a 4 or 5 character acronym that identifies the module that they're used to help pull data for. So for instance, FADM is the administration module, and you might go looking for things like the fiscal calendar, category, season IDs. FFCT is forecasting related tables, and things that you use would typically be like the offer product SKU are probably the most common. FMSH would be our master scheduling tables, and you look for things like hot lists, vendor maintenance, or even querying against the materials planning screen. FMKT would be our marketing related tables, and typically people are going and looking for offer setup information. And FINT is our interface related, and so it's the daily interface files that your company would send to Softvision Suite. And you might go looking to see, why isn't a purchase order, visible in my system? And you might want to go look at your interface files to see if it was sent over from your host system. So views are a combination of 2 or more tables where we join them to gain more information. And so they will also start with 4. They can have 5-digit acronyms. So VDRS would be reports. Things like scheduled receipts and back order are the most common that people use. And then VFSF would be our reports related to the venture module. And you might look at things like the forecast variance report or product performance reports.
Thanks, Linda. Hi, everyone. It's Janine. Welcome to the webinar. So there are 2 common tables that I'm going to show you on the next couple of slides that really benefit for the inventory world. And one of the things that we do want to call out is you don't necessarily have to have different tables for different reports. oftentimes you can look at a view or a table, and utilizing the different filters and grouping capabilities, you can go ahead and save different versions of the reports to service different parts of the business. So one table or view rather that is used quite a bit is the VDRS order detail. So this actual table has just a ton of information, but it can be used to look at all your order transactions. You can look at back orders, you can manage unusual demand, and oftentimes people will use this report to troubleshoot looking for the demand matchback, particularly if you map off our application, if you want to validate to make sure that demand, how it's coming in, gets posted the correct offer. This is a great report to do that with. You can utilize, like I said, not only the grouping and the filters, but you can create date ranges and things like that. It's a very, very useful view to use. As with all of our reports, you can export them into Excel to do any further analysis that you might need, as well as be able to communicate it throughout the organization. The next one that is extremely powerful is a view on product level history. So this is often used for validating forecast accuracy or monitoring sales. So in this particular example, pardon me, I brought in the actual versus the projected for a given offer in order to be able to see, how we're doing compared to how we're forecasted out. Again, this particular report can be saved many different ways by changing your column settings, by using your filters and formatting these different columns to save different aspects of the report. Again, another good feature on this is you can check either a favorite or private report. So if you happen to come in and you've created this forecast accuracy version of a report, you can mark it as favorite. And by doing so, allows you to launch into this report direct from your dashboard. So it removes the need to go into the actual DRS module.
So once you have a report that you're familiar with, we provide many ways for that report to be customized. So anytime you're in a report, you can right mouse click on a particular column and it'll open up a number of options that you can use for that formatting. So the first option is formatting, and it gives you the option that you can use a 1,000 unit separator to make your numbers easier to read. You can show the currency sign. You can expand or decrease the number of decimal points. A second option is summarize. And so this pertains to your green groupable data columns. And how do you want to see that data summarized? Do you want to see it as a total? Do you want to see it as an average, a count, or you have the option of selecting none as well if you don't want to see summarized information. Heading allows you to change a name of the column. So for instance, if category is not what your company uses within your hierarchy structure, you could change it to another name like family or department and save you having to do that every time you work or export a report. Filter is probably the least known among your formatting options, but it's very useful. So you have two options with filter. You can go a single number, which allows you to filter on a single line of data, or you have number range, which allows you to expand, and you can see that you've got a from and to option within your left-hand navigation. This is great if you are filtering on dates where you may have a lot of dates and you want to narrow it down to a specific set of those dates or orders or even revenue range. So. Action items are, Janine's going to talk about action items later in configuration, but action items within a report allow you a jumping off point. So you can use the report to identify exception items and then use an action item to go to another screen, such as product level forecasting or materials planning. And so you can you can click on any product or SKU within the report, do a right mouse click, and it opens up multiple fields that you can configure that you can jump from. If you assign any of those screens to be your default action, it saves you the step of having to do the right mouse click. You can just double click on the particular line and it'll automatically open to the screen of where you want to go, and then you can next through your report. As Jean mentioned Janine mentioned earlier, you have the export option off of the Home tab that you can export any report to do analysis outside, to share with other team members or your vendor. Another field or feature when you are using your left-hand navigation is the use of a wildcard. So for instance, if you go into a report and you can't remember what product ID you're looking at, or you remember it starts with, you know, a 94, you can just type 94 and that percent sign, and it would look for any product ID that begins with 94, and it'll give you a listing of everything after it. Again, that wildcard can be put in the front if you're searching before or searching after as to how you use a wildcard. And as Janine just mentioned too, favorites and private reports, you have the option of setting those to make life easier with working with reports as well.
DRS also allows users to create and view reports within our Venture 21 module. So within the DRS screen that you see here, there are the base views that are available, and they start with the VDRS and the VFSF. But a lot of these tables and views then can be used to build your own custom reports, as well as evaluate your product performance and volatility. It is much easier to manage and configure the report here, but you can then also build these reports so that they're visible within Venture 21. So for example, this My 21 product performance report is one that I had just created in the previous screen, and it's now available in this drop-down menu within Venture 21 to evaluate the data here. But Venture 21 also allows you to pull in the reports so that you can evaluate as you are making any adjustments to your forecast or your future demand. You have those same type of sorting, grouping, and filtering capabilities, as well as the ability to export from Excel within the Venture 21 screen.
All right, so how do I know what reports or what tables exist out there? So one thing that I'm going to show you is how to pull tables or views in from DRS configuration. And the first one that you're probably going to take a look at is this report called All Table. We have an All Table and we also have an All View. So obviously the All Table is going to have all of the tables that exist within the database, and then All Views is going to have all of the views. So the beauty of these two reports is when I pull in All Table, it's literally going to bring up every single table that exists. So how do I limit it? How do I try to find something? So let's just say I want to see what tables exist out there that include the vendor name. So I can filter on the vendor name, and it's going to pull up every table that includes that. It'll also, you can then decide to say, okay, I'm going to take a look at maybe FMSH vendor, or maybe I want to take a look at FMSH purchase order detail. I can then take that table name or a derivative of that table name into the configuration screen and see what columns are available within that. So oftentimes I'm asked, Janine, are there any reports for safety stock? So this would be something that you could do and filter on anything that says safety stock. It would then show you the tables that you'd be able to look at and see if any of those reports give you the information that you're looking for. Oftentimes, periodically, as the CSC team, we will run this and download it into Excel as a quick way to filter when we get asked those particular questions. You can do that. You can do the same. So configuration, dynamic report configuration is the second, well, it's the last option on the reports module menu. So when you open up in the screen, it will ask for a base view. So like I mentioned, if you run the All Table or All View report and you have a particular table you're looking for, you can simply type it in the base view. You can say, oops, you know what, I want to just look at what's got the word offer in it. You can type in offer. It'll pop up a list with absolutely every table in view that has the word offer. If you do nothing and just hit enter, it's going to pull up absolutely everything. So ideally, you want to try to limit what lists come back for you to take a look at. So in this instance, I said, okay, I'm curious about what has offer information. So I type in offer and pull up a list. So I see, okay, I'm going to take a look and see what offer product period, what is that report? So I'll click on OK. And what it'll do is it'll now open up the configuration table. It shows me every single column that will be on this particular report. You can do all of that editing and formatting information that Linda just previously described in this screen all at one fell swoop if you decide to do so. If not, once you have the report and can access it, you can continue to edit and have all that change however you want the format of this to be. So once you've decided, yes, this is the report I like, you need to come up with a report title. In this instance, I just put the offer product period, which came from the FFCT, which is typically the forecasting module. I included that just as a reminder for me. The next thing that you will need to do is a classification. So oftentimes when you're first using DRS, we typically tend to classify it in the same module that the table is related to. In this instance, I did not do that. I classified it as master scheduling because the reason I'm pulling this report forward is I'm going to be running this to look at the weekly MRP view that exists in materials planning screen. So for me, materials planning screen is in master scheduling, so I wanted to classify it for master scheduling. I'm illustrating down in the column area, highlighting group. So for those particular columns that you want to be able to group once you're in the report, those nifty little green headers, you can go ahead and check those options here. So I can edit my grouping, I can edit my data elements, I can add filters. Linda will get into that a little bit more. The other two things that you have in here is you can make these reports actionable. So I can go ahead and preset that on this particular report, I want when I click on my product ID that I will automatically launch into the materials planning screen. So I can go ahead and pre-do that here so that once I've got that report ready, it's all set for me to double click on my products and work through my list in materials planning. The last thing that we have is what we call synchronize. So this comes into play when we start adding, like for example, upgrades, when we do a version upgrade. If we start adding additional fields that are made available within the screen, you will be prompted to come in and synchronize to bring those additional columns in. A perfect example are all those new user fields that have been added. So you would be prompted in here to synchronize to bring in those additional user fields. Now, once I've done all this, I want to make sure that I save and exit. So I've configured my report, but now I want to make it available in my DRS library of reports. So the next thing you need to do is go back out to the reports module, and you're going to select dynamic reports. And then we're going to click on new. So I've created this new report from configuration, and I want to bring it into my library. So when I click new, pardon me, it's going to bring up two columns, either reports by name or reports by base view. Not too many people will necessarily remember that full base view that we pulled into configuration. So I tend to default going into the report by name. So I will find my name of the report on the list, highlight it, and then on the right-hand side, it'll pop up that report name that I gave it, the brief description. So you just want to just validate and make sure that that is the report that you just worked on in configuration. And so there's a few little things that you need to do is we do ask you to give it a report name again down here on the bottom. Quick way to do that is just simply highlight your default report title, copy, and then click and copy down, paste down on the bottom. Here I also get the option to make this either a favorite or a private report. Once I do that, all I need to do is just click finish, and it automatically is going to retrieve the report. So once the report appears on your screen, again, you still have all the means to customize that Linda mentioned, can save different variations of this report for different purposes. And again, marking it as a favorite, I can launch directly into this whenever I want to from the dashboard. One thing I forgot to mention previously is on any of these reports that you're creating, obviously each time you go into the report, it's refreshed with the latest information. So any working that you've been doing in the system, your interfaces, all of that information, each day those reports are refreshed for you.
So another option within report configuration is filter type. And so within filter type, you have two options to report on. A filter type of none, when it's set to none, means that when you're running a report and you want to filter on a particular offer, you will have to use the left-hand navigation to enter the offer or offers to identify and pull the data. But another option that you have with filter type is called offer. And when you set within configuration that filter type to offer, on the report header screen, it's going to open up a offer selection screen. And if you double click within that offer selection portion of the screen, it takes you to a offer selection option. And the benefit of that is you get to very easily select multiple offers and multiple versions. Data can be selected by year or by division, but it also gives you the ability that you can sort or select data by season or possibly by group code. And so season and group are both assigned to an offer within the marketing offer setup screen. But if you go in and you select season and the version, it will pull in all the offers for that particular season. So, or group, an option for people to use group is if you have an offer and it is remailed and it's just the exact version of that offer for a remail, you can create a group to assign the two together, and then anytime you do reporting, you're reporting on both of those offers. They were just remails of the same variation. So a useful tool to think of when creating your reports and how to pull data. So one last item is as you start configuring your own reports, we make all the module classifications out there available, but you may want to go in and start creating and assigning your own classifications to make reports easier. An example I see once in a while is people will create a classification called weekly. So when new people start with the organization, they can go just to that weekly bucket and here's the reports that they need to work on weekly. Or you may create buckets for pulling and reporting by offer or other reasons. But again, just a way to make the reporting options more useful for you as a client. So, and now Stuart is going to do a live demo of some of our reporting options for us.
Thanks, Linda. This is Stuart, and I'm going to connect to a sample dashboard, and we'll go in and we'll take a look at some of these reports, ways to access, and ways to customize. So in the reports module, we have dynamic reports, and we have configuration. So I'm going to click on dynamic reports. And when you click on dynamic reports, it comes up with different tabs. Here you could see my favorite reports. So these are ones that were marked as favorite by classification. These are my favorite reports. So this is based on user. So different users will have different favorite reports. And you see when you click on this here, you could see the columns that are selected, the description, and the name of the report. And this is a favorite report. So these are all my favorite reports. The next tab is reports, all of my reports. So these are all the different reports that I've saved by classification. The next tab is classification for all users. So this would be like in master scheduling, these are all the different reports that have been saved by all users in the system. And you can see that there's a lot of them. Excuse me. Next is owner. So this is who owns the report, who created the report. Now I could go in here and I could take a look at a particular offer and I could go in and make it my favorite, or I could go in and retrieve it, customize it, and then do a save as. So this way, if someone goes in and they designed a report, they formatted it, selected columns, you could go in there and make a copy of it, unless they marked it as private. So if you went in there and you created a report and you really don't want anyone going in there and saving over your report, you can make it a private report. It doesn't mean that the person can't create a new report. They could just create a new one from this base view or from another report. But what they can do is they can go in and access this particular report. The tab I usually go to is this base view. And here you could see the reports by name or reports by base view. I'm just used to looking at the base view, and these are what we mentioned before. These are the different tables. So FADM is administration, forecast, marketing, master scheduling, and then we get to the DRS reports. The DRS reports are the ones that the system basically Softvision created. Sarah, someone asked a question, can reports you have created be deleted? Yes. When you're in the report, there is a delete option. That's your own particular report. You're not going to be deleting the base view itself because that would always be available. But there is a delete option at the top of the report. There's some other reports here. You could see there's some venture reports, VDRs, V21, VFSF. And I'm going to go into this report, scheduled receipts. So if I open this report, I see all the different reports that were saved by different people. If you click here and you see that the owner is the system, you won't see the columns. This is the one that Softvision basically created. This was the first blank report, basically. Here I'm going to click on my report. A lot of times when you do a save as, it adds a username. You don't have to keep it, but in this case, I'm going to. So here's OpenPO report. Here's the columns that I have, and I'm going to click OK to open it. So now it's going to open the report. It's not going to retrieve it yet, but I'm going to expand this. A lot of times, if you're opening someone's report, you may want to look at the filters they have. They may not be something you want. You could hit clear to clear all the filters. In this case, I really don't have any filters set up, so I'm just going to click retrieve. Now you see the description here. This contains information of all open purchase orders, requisitions, and work orders. So here's the report. On the bottom, you see the records process, 6232. Make sure you have your status bar checked. And you could go in there and hit auto fit. So that'll auto fit the columns. All right. Now what I'm going to show you here in this report, you could do on every report. So this is basically just a sample or template that we're going to use. There are a lot more columns here. Everything here in the filter are columns that you could pick, or you could go in there and you could change the columns. Either click customize columns or right click show hide. So here, if I wanted to, I could pick up, let's say, vendor part ID. Maybe I want to add it here. Or I may want to pick up scheduler and add that, move that down. So now I have the vendor part ID. I have the scheduler. And I have every vendor here, basically. Now you could left click to sort on any of these fields. If I wanted to, I could sort on total cost or quantity. I also have the option of grouping. So let's say any of these green columns. So let's say I click and I group by vendor. So now if I click on the one, this is going to show me this summarize. And we spoke about the summarize info. So this is summarizing quantity or units and then total cost. If I click on this, I'll see the detail within the group. And you'll see numbers here for how many. You could group any number of fields in there that you move up into that section. You may want to sort by the group. So if you right click on total cost, I'm going to sort group descending. So now this is showing me my top vendors by cost. And I could go in there and take a look at that and basically start reviewing that. Now, we also have action items set up. If I right click, I could link to PLF, materials planning. So I'm going to link to materials planning, and that would then bring up the materials planning screen. So I could then go review this requisition. And if I hit next, since we're linking from the report, what we're going to do is go down the entire list. So we could go in there and start reviewing each one. So it's great to be able to link into different modules. You know, some use for this might be if you're looking at a particular offer and you want to take a look in PLF, you could then link directly into PLF, work down the list. Or if you have a back order report, you may want to sort that by top back orders. You'll see the information there, like, you know, back order, you know, the receipts and everything else. But this way, you may want to go into materials planning to see your entire horizon.
Stuart, we had a question come in.
Yeah, I see that. How can
Asking
you tell what is open PO, worksheet, or action in this report? So I did not add that field, but I believe that is receipt type. So if I go in there, I could go show hide and go to receipt type, add that, and then you could see here, requisition or PO, or work order, basically. So that is an option that you have, you know, to bring that in to take a look, since it will show you all of them. The other thing is we may want to change the headings on these. You know, revised expected receipt date is kind of wordy. So I could right click and I could go to heading and uncheck use default. So I'm gonna go in there and just delete this and call this due date. I like that a lot better. And I could also change the filter itself. So the filter is a date range, which is good, but I could change the filter label also and call this due date. Okay, so now when this comes up, this will now be changed to due date. It'll be changed here, and here is due date. The other thing I could do is right click and format. And again, I may want currency for this. And maybe go to 2 decimal places. So now I have this total cost by currency. Okay, the other thing is you can export this to Excel, as we said. If I go to the configuration utility, whenever you link from a report to configuration, it's going to tell you any changes you make won't be reflected until you reopen. So if you do make changes, you would have to reopen. The VDRS reports are system views provided by Softvision. You can edit them, but you can change the columns. What that means is that the DRS reports, you cannot change these groups. The others you can, the FFCT, the VFCT, all the other reports, but the DRS, you can't do that. But you could take a look at the action columns. So this is how we have the actions set up. So here's the link. You would check it and then put the drop-down field here. Okay, materials planning and SKU. And now I could show you with another report, but like if we had a forecasting report or an offer report, this product ID might be offer product ID. So you need to go in here and identify the correct linked column, basically. And so that's how these links are set up. But like I said, this was done specifically and saved by Softvision. So you can't do much changes there. If I change my due date, let's say there's a date range, I could, if I want to look at past due POs, I could click here and I get a calendar. You know, unfortunately, the information in this system is pretty old, so I'm going to go back with the date and change this, let's say, to here and retrieve. So here we had 6232, now we have 2312. So now this is my past due report. I could do a save as and call this a past due report. Another word just on these filters, the number fields are the ones like quantity, where you're going to have greater than, less than, greater than equal, is null or not null. The text fields you don't have that. But for any of the text fields, you could put in an or sign. So let's say I have A or D for the category, and you could do a whole string of these. That would then, no, that's not good. No, I have to uncheck this quantity equal to 0. Yeah, so to take off something, even if you had something there, you could uncheck. So now these are all of my products that are in this category, A or D. So that's one way of doing it. The other thing you could do is, if I take this off, is the wildcard. So I don't know if you would use it here, but let's say I put in 55%. This is going to show me every product ID that starts with 55. You may use a wildcard for catalog, possibly code, things like that. But if you do that, then you're going to get this, all of these products 55. So you'll see as you're working through these, you know, the different uses for that. Now, if I'm going off, all unsaved changes will be lost. Do you want to continue? And you'd say yes. I don't want to save. I want to now go take a look at another report. So I'm going to go to my favorites, and anything you marked as your favorites will show up here. And you could run them directly from here. If you add a new favorite and you don't see it here, click this refresh icon, okay? And remember, these favorite reports is an element on the dashboard. You would go in and modify and make sure that you see it, because you could go in and customize these. So I'm going to open this one called Order Check. Basically, this is going into the order detail report. And it runs automatically. So it's different from going to dynamic reports and selecting it. You have to hit retrieve. These come in automatically. So I put in a filter here where I put quantity greater than 49. I want to check for these particular orders, these customer orders with large quantities. You wouldn't usually put something that low. That's just in the sample. But you want to maybe see over 1,000 or 500, depending on your business. And here I could sort. So it's possible that if I have a new offer that came out, something comes up in product variance, I expect it to sell 100 and it's coming in at 3,000. This is where you could go in and possibly find that particular order. Or if you work in venture and you start seeing variances, it's good to come in here at least once a week and double check those large quantities, because you may want to enter a historic override to override those sales. And you see order date, you could do order date from and to. The other thing you could do is you could run a particular offer ID if you wanted to look at a particular offer. And as we said before, if you do offer mapping, it's offer ID and original offer ID. So we will show, however the order transactions came in, what's the code, what was that offer ID, and then if you have offer mapping set up, it would go to that particular offer. Okay, now if I go in there and I take out this quantity and I go to, let's say, an offer ID, I put November A as an offer ID and hit retrieve, I'm going to get this screen, which is this warning. Order transaction and order detail is a large report. You almost always have to put filters in. So what happens is it'll say your query matches here 131,000 records. So I could continue loading it. You could load 500,000. Some people have done more. Just realize it may take a while depending on the report. Or you could add filters. So this is giving me this warning at 10,000 to say, go in there and maybe add a filter. Or you could choose a number. So if you choose a number, it doesn't really help, but kind of shows you what the report looks like. It'll show you the first 10,000 records, let's say. But in most cases, you would add filters to do that. One other report, or another report I'm going to show, is offer sales. So this report, and I don't think I gave great names for these, to be honest with you. You may want to put better names on this. This is just an example. This is one that has this offer filter, okay? Now, you could still filter other fields here, but if you're going to use this offer filter, don't select the offers here. The advantage is you could select different versions that are here. And how is this set up? Well, if you go to the configuration utility, you could see that this filter type is offer. You see that? So filter is offer. Let me show you the action columns. So here you see product ID, and this is what we spoke about before, the linking. If you check this, then you would have to select offer product ID. And when you first set this up, it's going to show you a list. So if I go in here and now check this, it's going to show you a list of them. It basically remembered what I put in. But that's basically what you have to look at when you're doing this linking. But here you see filter type is offer. You should set that up for any offer. You may not want to do it for master scheduling because it doesn't make sense. But you see here, this is one particular offer. This is a report I'm showing units and revenue. I could either double click or click on this offer selection. If I double click in here, I could see the offer that was selected. You see that you could select different versions of the offer. Here, if I click the plus sign, I could select one of my saved versions to run for this report. I could also go in and select different version types if I wanted to. If I want to go in here and bring in 2010 actual, I could do it that way. That would be difficult to do in the left filter, basically. And then here, I could also select by season if I wanted to. So I could go in, you could expand to see these different offers. This is basically a shortcut. So I could go in here and pick my working here. You have to go back here and hit accept. So now I have all of these offers and I could hit retrieve. So, and now you see I have 4,000 records here, which is a large amount of records. One other thing which we spoke about last time, I'll show you it quickly, is a pivot report. So you could either export to Excel or you could set up a pivot report. You could bring down, and this works similar to the way you do it in Excel. Offer product ID, I could do offer ID, I could do units here. Okay, so this is a nice report now. It's showing me this. It'll show me a grand total. I could export this to Excel the way it is. So it's really good having this pivot report. And again, you just need to play around with it, but it's some nice information, and you also have a pivot chart. Okay, I'm going to go back to the favorites report here and pick up a venture report. This is forecast volatility. And actually, because I was in the pivot report, it's now showing it to me. But this is a volatility report for venture, and this shows you the change range. This report compares the forecasts, and you can see a description for the next 7 weeks and the same 7 weeks that were forecasted this week. So it's showing the two different forecasts, and there's a change range in here. So you could go in and sort that. So you could see how, you know, last week's forecast was 11, this week is 228. So this is one way, and hopefully you don't have as many changes, but this is a way to review these changes that come in with the venture report. And there's a number of different venture reports that you could work with. The difference with these reports is there's really not an actionable item because you can't link directly into the venture module. If you go to the configuration utility, you could see, if you hit action columns, you could see how you could set this up for Venture 21. So you could put in your company ID, venture code, and product. These are required fields. And once you save this particular report, you could then go into Venture in the DRS section and then bring up this report and all the different reports that were saved. All right, I'm going to go back into the all table, all view that Janine had mentioned. So we'll see about looking for a new report. So let's say view name, I could put in week. And the reason I go to views is a lot more option in views and tables. If I go to week, this is going to show me all the different views that have week in it, you know, or for product week, weekly receipts, okay? That type of information. Or I could go in and look at a particular column, like I mentioned, vendor. And this will show me everything that has vendor here. One thing I didn't show you in the other reports is instead of filtering, you could actually hit this drop down and filter it right in here. And you could do this for any column. So if I wanted to specifically look for just vendor name, I could just click that and hit apply. Okay. When you do this type of filtering, you'll notice that there's a check mark here. That's to remind you that you do have the filter set up. I thought you could right click, but I guess you could come here and clear it or hit apply. Okay. So I could sort by this. I could take a look. And here's a report, sales velocity. This is a nice report because it's one of the few reports that show sales, actual sales, and inventory position. So now that I have that report, I could go into configuration. So as we're going through this, and as you go back in the presentation, you may come into DRS and say, Stuart, I don't have those reports. You showed me those reports. I don't see them here. And that's because you need to save them. And I'll show you how to do that, because these are just the reports that were pre-saved by Softvision or the reports that users actually saved. Okay, so I would go to the configuration at this point. And base view, I'm going to put in sales because I remember that report. And here's this sales velocity report. Now, the reason I know this wasn't saved is there's no default report title. If someone else had saved it, this would be filled in. So you could see here, you could sort by column name. This just shows actual sales. For a particular offer, it'll show you sales for the last few weeks. It'll show you vendor information, like we said. It'll show you quantity on hand and receipts, okay, and other things. So I could put in a default report title, actual sales. I could make a classification. I could put it under sales or inventory, or I could put it under reports, let's say. And then you could put a description. You could say actual sales, I can't type well, with inventory info. Okay, I could go in here and group. If I want to set my groups, I could set for category ID. I could set for offer ID, anything like that. Like we said, you could go in here and change some of the methods in here before you do it. If you want to set up action items, what you have to do first is to save. So once you save it, you could then go to action, all right? And then if we wanted to go to product level forecasting, you see product, we would have to pick up offer product ID. All right, and you'll start to know which ones to do. I'm just going to do this for now. So I could hit save and exit, save and exit. So now when I go to dynamic reports, I could click new. I could go to the name of the report or base view. Let me go to the name. I put this in the reports module. So I called this actual sales. You do have to give it another name again. I don't know if I could copy paste, but I'll call this actual sales. And then I could hit finish. Now, when you do that and you run it here, it's going to run automatically. And you don't have filters. So you could see you really want to add filters to this. So I could go in here and I could go in and add an offer ID. Let's say I did April B. And again, there's no version here. This only shows you actual sales. So this then will show me the actual sales, the units, unit price, and it will show me quantity on hand and receipt date and receipt total, as well as vendor name. And then you could go in and customize this report. I'm going to say yes. All right. Are there any questions while I'm here before we go back to the presentation? We'll go through some best practices. All right, let me go back to the presentation. You could still ask questions. Here's best practices. What you want to do is determine those reports that you want to see, maybe the ones you're doing in Excel outside of the system, whether you're looking at sales or inventory, the type of report and the range, whether you're looking at offer, weekly, season. And think about the fields you want to look at, back order or page information, basically. And then realize you could save it as different reports. So you could use the same base view. So like we said, schedule receipts, as I showed, that's all your open POs. I could put in a past date, and that's past due POs. That does not update all the time. So in other words, if this week you said, I want everything earlier than this week, 3 weeks from now, you would have to go in and adjust that date, okay, for going back, because it won't automatically update. But that filter will be there. You could call it past due POs. And for the same view, you could create ones by scheduler, call it Stu's open POs, whatever username you have. Most important is don't hesitate to use a module to create reports. You're not changing any data in the system, okay? There is no way within DRS that you're changing the data. All we're doing is querying the information. So don't be hesitant to go in there and use it. Read the user manual, go to our support site as your customer success consultant, and most important, practice, practice, practice. The more you use it, you may have someone that's dedicated in the company that does well with reports, that's good at designing reports, or maybe that's their responsibility. They could go in, you could save their reports, or you could go in and work your own. It's fairly easy to do, and the more you use it, the more you'll understand it. We did have a question. How do we get a copy of the user manual? The user manual is on the support side in Freshdesk. Okay, also, when you're within the module itself, you'd be able to pick up the user manual. If you have it set up that you have documentation, you could click the question mark, and then you'd be able to get the user manual right there. Here's some best practices list of reports. I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are just some suggested reports. We spoke about all tab and all view. That's every table in view. Order detail we went through. Here's a pub product compare, and this is a fairly relatively new report. If you set this up in marketing and publish a version, you can compare your actual weekly sales to the published sales. Let me go back a bit. Oh, sorry, we have another question. We have one specific for our company, but would like one with all our options. Don't know what
that was in reference to the user manual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like one with all our options. That should be the user manual. Should be the same, basically. But we'll see. We could get back to you on that one. Product level history we spoke about. That shows what particular version, and also in another column, actual and projected sales. SKU listing shows you your product mix percent, sales velocity. Source aggregation combines top level source. That'll show you forecast actual sales by time period. In inventory is a back order, receipts. There's an MRP need report. That'll show you in your future weeks your demand and net need and MRP need, and your beginning inventory for those future weeks of materials planning. SPO data shows you the SPO method and weekly data. And then here's some venture reports. Product performance compares 4 weeks of sales to the next 4 weeks. There's different forecast variance, and then the forecast volatility. I'm going to hand that back to Megan now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Stuart. Lots of great information there. Okay, so to wrap up here, this is just a reminder that the user conference details and the registration is now open. The user conference this year will take place at the Wyndham Grand in Orlando, Florida, and it's running from February 2nd through the 5th, 2020. As many of you know, the user conference is a great opportunity to network with industry peers as well as with our Cognizant Softvision team. So we encourage you to join if possible. And registration information has gone out. If you need any information, please reach out to your CSC and they can help point you in the right direction. And we'll also include a registration link when we send our follow-up email here with the webinar. Okay, so let me just make sure we don't have any other questions. Looks like there was just some more questions about the user manual.
Yeah, we'll get back after the meeting to people.
Okay.
We have a copy of those questions. So.
Perfect. All right, well, other than that, then we'll wrap up for today. We appreciate everyone joining us, and our next webinar is scheduled for October 30th, and that is covering suggested purchase order. All right, thank you everyone and have a great rest of your day.